5 Classic coming up on Saturday, a triple header at the Xfinity Mobile Arena. It will be the Penn Quakers and the Villanova Wildcats for the title. Coach, what do you make of the matchup against Villanova, and what does it mean for your program to be in this game in your first year back?
I'm really proud of our guys, Kev. I thought we beat two really good teams in St. Joe's and Drexel, two well-coached teams. Playing in the championship game is an accomplishment. Have tremendous respect for Kevin. Been coaching against him, since 05, 06, 06, 07, right around there when he got to Iona. One of the better coaches, one of the best coaches, out there. And I know that because I've coached against him so many times. Doing a great job with the program in the short period of time he's been there. Watched a number of games. They're playing together. They got some new faces, and he did the same thing at Maryland. Put some new faces together and got them playing winning basketball. And I think that's the key in today's climate. But the opportunity to play at the Xfinity Center, and as you pointed out, against a team of that caliber is a great opportunity for our program. And our guys have earned it, and we're looking forward to it.
This is still a relatively new thing. It's only the third year that they've done this triple header. And obviously, this is your first year back in Philadelphia. What do you make of the format and the way that they're doing it now?
Yeah, I think it's great. I would prefer the old format. We got away from that, where everybody plays everybody. I think I understand the dynamics of scheduling anymore and how it affects so many things. But the fact that we are playing each other and then getting all six of us at one location, I think is a great thing. And I'm excited about it, like I said.
Yeah, Jay Wright, when we talked to him about it a couple of years ago, he mentioned how difficult it is to even make that possible. If people wanted to go back to the old way of doing it, you've got TV contracts, the teams that are all in different conferences now. He would point to, Villanova playing Temple on a random day in February, and then Nova might have UConn 2 days later or something like that. Is it even, in this world that we're living in now, is it even possible to go back to doing it the old way?
Yeah, you know what? I don't think, so you play Temple, then you play UConn. You're going to play somebody before you play UConn. I don't think that's that big of a deal. I think the point you made earlier, Kev, is a good one. When you look at the whole composite of, okay, are you playing 20 league games or are you playing 18 league games? That's factor number one. You're in an MTE, maybe another MTE at some point, typically around Thanksgiving. Do you have challenge games? Big East, Big Ten, SEC, ACC, whatever that is. So that limits how many games you have left. And then the concern, of course, is how do you get to the correct number of wins and how do you prepare your team for conference play? The Big Five games are going to be competitive. They're going to have a different level of intensity. And I think it's important right now that we play them when we play them in terms of what time of the year it is, because it does get a little bit harder, when you get to conference play. And I think Jay's point was not so much that we have to, play Temple, then play UConn, but it's once we shift into conference mode, we're thinking conference play. How do we beat UConn? How do we beat Marquette? How do we beat Butler, St. John's, etc.? So the bottom line is it can be done. The question is, does everybody want to do it? And we should.
I think, a common theme along with that, we talked to all the coaches, I think, when this thing started a couple of years ago. Fran Dunphy said that they were all kind of unanimous and they wanted to make it better. How do we do this better? How do we feature the Big Five again? How do we kind of get the Big Five back to where it used to be? And one of the thoughts was just to have a showcase, to give the Big Five its day in South Philly where all of the teams are playing. That if we can't do it the old way, well, let's try to make it a showcase, a day that every year hopefully the Big Five can own and kind of take some headlines and kind of be a again, I'll use the word showcase again for local college hoops. I mean, do you agree with that assessment from them that something just wasn't necessarily clicking, and so let's just try something else, starting with this?
I think there's no question that's exactly what happened, and Dump is right. And Dump's usually right. He's got a great perspective across the board in college basketball, but certainly in Philadelphia, nobody would have a better one. And it is a showcase. We're all there on the same day, all of the fan bases. We all have an opportunity to play a competitive game. So I like the idea. I think it was a really good one under the circumstances that you pointed out. If we're not going to be it's not going to be like it used to be, then what can we do that makes sense? And I think this was a great idea.
What was your perspective of on the Big Five from afar? I mean, you were in Iowa for 15 years. You were at Siena before that. I mean, you played here and you grew up here, and you know what it was like back then. When you came back here and started coaching, I mean, what was your reaction to the crowds, to the juice, to the students? I mean, what's the current state of the Big Five in 2025 in your mind?
Well, I can't speak to the other programs other than we did play at Drexel. We had a nice atmosphere there. The St. Joe's game was here. I thought we had a good crowd. I think college basketball in general, attendance has fallen off. The interesting thing about that is the interest hasn't fallen off. Every game's on TV. You can find it somewhere. So there's not as many people going. It doesn't seem to have the same interest from student bodies. And that's everywhere. There are some places where it's still nuts. Okay. And I came from a league where that was the case at Michigan State, at Purdue. There are some places, we obviously Duke and Carolina, Kentucky. But student engagement is getting more and more difficult across the board, and it's noticeable. Attendance has dropped. The days of getting 20,000 people to go to a college basketball game seemingly are over. Anybody that builds a new arena is building them 8, 9, maybe 10, because you want that kind of atmosphere. It's one of the things that's always made Cameron so special. 9,000 people. You cannot possibly get a ticket. And that's the way they want it. That's the way they've kept it. And it's something special. So, for us, when you think about the days of the Big Five, it was always full. It was always full because there was 4 teams. It should be full. You should be able to get 8,700 people or 9,000 people with 4 teams. So it's a little bit harder there. But our fan base has been consistently good. I would like to get the students a little more engaged. It was, I will tell you, when I played here, obviously a long time ago, we had Krzyzewskiville. Before Krzyzewski was even a coach at Duke, we had students sleeping out for tickets. So if we can get back to where we have more students coming to the games.
Yeah, those are some of my formative moments at West Virginia University. We would boo the ever living shit out of the Pitt Panthers, whether we had 4 wins or whether we had 14 wins, and
that was my junior year. We played there in the NIT.
Yeah.
And then of course when I was an assistant at Notre Dame, we were in the Big East together with West Virginia.
Yeah.
Always a tough place to play. The Mountaineer would run out and shoot his gun and everybody would go nuts. And very well known for being a difficult road environment, and that's what we all want to see, no question.
Yeah, I think these things are cyclical in nature too. I mean, surely winning cures everything, and then fans start coming back, and I think the thing that's really interesting about the Big Five, because I grew up here, but I didn't go to a Big Five school. And coming back and working in television here, I was at Eyewitness News for a while. I see that there's kind of like this tribalism when it comes to the Big Five. For instance, if you're a Villanova guy, maybe you don't really care about Temple. If you're a Temple guy, maybe you don't really care about Penn. my employee Kyle is a Temple guy, and we'll just talk trash about Villanova nonstop. You know, the mainline crowd, wine and cheese, and all that stuff. But he doesn't care if Drexel goes on a 10-game win streak. You know, so I think it's hard to, you know, when you've got 6 teams in it. If you went to one of those schools, you're a fan of one of those teams. You know, those other teams are your rivals, and you're not necessarily cheering for them if they go to the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight. So there's a saturation there, I think, number one. And number two, if you're a casual, you know, it takes something like Jameer Nelson and Delonte West for the casuals to get on board, or, you know, even Tyrone Garland hitting the Southwest Philly floater 10 years ago. Things like that to get casual Eagles fans and Sixers fans and Flyers fans on board. Do you agree with my theory at all that this tribalism, this spread out fandom, maybe is a thing that kind of affects the Big Five negatively?
Well, you know, for many years, people were Big Five fans. They came to the Palestra and rooted for Big Five teams against teams that were not from Philadelphia. There's no question that that's changed, and you more are a fan of whatever school you went to or which team you might pick. There's probably still some fans that are Big Five fans, but it's a difficult niche. You know, when you look at Philadelphia, you know, it's obviously a pro sports town in so many ways. So the sports fan has a lot of options, and it was so much easier when all the teams played at one location, oftentimes on the same night. So
Yeah.
you know, I think it's just a natural transformation of what has happened in college basketball as it relates to professional sports, in particular in the city.
Just a couple more for you. What your thoughts in general, as I look at Lane Kiffin going 11-1 and leaving Ole Miss for LSU before the playoff, and now you look at the landscape across college football and basketball with the transfer portal and NIL, and you know, the constant changing of players. It feels like everybody's Coach Cal now, where he used to lose all his one and done guys at Kentucky every year. And now it feels like you're building a brand new team with the transfer portal and whatnot. How is that landscape affect you at Penn now? I mean, are you vulnerable to some of those things, or do you have guys that you think are going to be able to keep for 2 to 3 years? I mean, how does that look for you guys?
Well, I think everybody's vulnerable, Kev, because the NCAA made a decision that every athlete is a free agent and every athlete can have an agent. So it stands to reason what transpired. That could also impact what we talked about a few minutes ago, the interest in fan bases and, you know, being able to keep track of the players you have. If your team's roster changes every year, you're going to lose fans. The system is not working. But to those people who say, oh, NIL is a bad thing, NIL is not a bad thing. NIL is something that should happen. The Supreme Court voted 9-0 in favor of it, so it's not going anywhere. But it's the additional guardrails that were supposed to be in place that went away. It was supposed to be fixed with a rev share, but it has not. You know, because as long as you can still pay above rev share, then there is no salary cap. But until contracts are binding and both ways, so the school is bound and the athlete is bound, and we're going to have to start with long-term contracts. You know, if we're going with one-year contracts, it's like European basketball. You play this year for next year, and your agent is shopping you, and you know it's not something that I think people enjoy seeing when they watch a game, and the color commentator is like, okay, well he was there 2 years ago, then he was here, then he was there. He's on his fourth school, he's on his third school. I don't think people like that, but the reality is that's legal. You know, so until there are more rules in place that people actually follow, it's going to be just like it is now, where everybody can just do whatever they want at any particular time, and you really can't get mad at the players or the coaches.
Yeah, it's a little bit of the Wild West. I mean, even watching Villanova and Temple last night, Devin Askew, I'm thinking, didn't I watch him at Kentucky? I think I watched him at Texas too. Then he went somewhere else. It's hard to keep track and
Mhm.
where these guys are, and there's a lack of continuity. But
Right.
I feel like there's momentum to put those guardrails back up, or at least bring some of them back. I mean, do you feel like the public sentiment and the sentiment among coaches um, is taking us to that where we're going to have more regulation and try to make a little bit more sense here?
I don't think there's any question about that. And I think in particular on the basketball side, I have the utmost respect for Danny Gavitt. He is really smart. He is actively working on trying to solve the problems that we have just discussed. He knows what they are. Uh, there are a number of different difficulties in arriving at where we would all like to be, nor can we seemingly have some level of agreement on where we need to end up. Everybody says the same thing. We need guardrails, we need rules, but then nobody wants to follow them.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, I think there will be more rules. And I'm hopeful that they are followed to the level that they should be. It's not there's a rule, but then we appeal and then we sue the NCAA, and the NCAA has $28 billion worth of lawsuits against them. They can't possibly fight every lawsuit. And nobody ever sides with the NCAA no matter what case they present. And that's not right. Because, I was on the NCAA Ethics Coalition for 6 years. I know those folks. I've been around them. I've been in meetings with the top people in the NCAA. They want to do what's best for the student athletes. They want to do the right thing. But all anybody does is attack them and blame them. You can't govern unless people want governance. And we've gotten away from it. And hopefully we'll get back to it.
Last one for you. I'm asking this on behalf of my Temple employee. He says that in 2016, Iowa Hawkeyes versus Temple Owls in the NCAA tournament, he says your guy pushed off at the end on the game-winning basket. Would you like to respond to him?
All I know is it was a good bucket. 3 guys, or 3 of the best officials in the country, didn't call it. So, I think you better let it go. The bucket was good. We won the game. And the guy who did it, Adam Woodbury, is one of my favorite players I ever coached. Just an absolute gamer. I was happy for him.
Fair enough. Thank you, Coach, and good luck to your
Hey.
Quakers.